Tonight, Weyburn residents rally for a man evicted from long-term care. Municipal leaders put their questions to the provincial government.
The Canadian economy is starting from a good place.
And interest rates stay put as Donald Trump's tariff wars continue.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, April 16th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. A Weyburn man was kicked out of a long-term care home Wednesday. It comes after appeals for extended respite care were denied. And as Sarah Onyango reports, his eviction is raising questions about senior care in our province.
A handful of friends and community members gathered outside the Weyburn Special Care Home to support 71-year-old Fred Sandusky. He's being evicted from this provincially run long-term care home because it says he's too healthy to be here, but they disagree.
The frustration that I feel with this is ridiculous because they agree that I should be in long-term care, but I don't meet the criteria as of yet. I have to be sicker.
Fred has chronic lung disease, epilepsy, and vision loss. Until late last year, he lived at home with his wife, Teresa. She was his primary caregiver. But last fall, Teresa needed surgery, so Fred moved into the home for respite care. Then her hospital stay extended, so Fred was allowed to stay at the special care home for $50 a day. Now, Teresa is back home, but she says she isn't strong enough to care for Fred anymore. The couple wants him to stay in the facility, but after 2 assessments, he's being evicted. He says because he's not incontinent.
We're hoping that the government is going to start realizing that they're putting too many barriers on the low-income sector altogether, seniors particularly, because this is ridiculous.
You know, today we had 2 armed peace officers called to evict a very, very critically ill man and put his belongings on the street. Incredibly cruel and callous.
I've been advised by officials that Mr. Sandusky was assessed twice and does not qualify. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In a statement, the Ministry of Health says, quote, long-term care is intended for people with high or complex care requirements that cannot be safely managed at home, even with home care or other supports. The couple says they've been told Fred can move into a private care facility for thousands of dollars a month, something they can't afford, or receive limited home care services.
I'm nervous. I'm a wreck, but I mean, I'll do what I can.
But as Fred heads home, the couple says the burden will rest on Teresa. Sarah Onyango, CBC News, Weyburn.
An adult learning center that also provides resources for addiction recovery, suicide prevention, and housing supports is set to close its doors later this year. Officials with Ignite Adult Learning Corporation in Regina say the province has reduced its funding. The organization needs more than $900,000 a year to operate. This year, the province is only providing $200,000. That means Ignite will have to close its doors in September. The organization says it's been told to get funding from other ministries, but has so far been unsuccessful.
Everyone that we've talked to they love the program. You're making such a great impact. Good job. I have $0 for you. It's really hard, and it's kind of an emotional journey every time we have to sort of present our case like this and try to engage someone in working with us to preserve this important service in our community.
Certainly, officials are prepared to meet with the senior folks, the executive director, chair of the board, have discussions about what a contract could look like going forward.
Ryder says this has all been a misunderstanding, but after question period, Ignite officials told media there's been no miscommunication and that the government simply made the decision not to provide them with enough money. The Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association annual convention has wrapped up for another year. It ended with a bear pit session where municipal leaders had a chance to pose questions to the Premier and his cabinet ministers. Jeremy Warren has more on what was asked.
The SUMA Bear Pit session always gets people talking, and this year there was plenty to talk about.
Can you reinstate the NORPAC program?
When will the government respond in a proactive way?
When can we expect to hear that you've signed on to this agreement?
Thank you. On Monday, SUMA delegates passed a resolution calling on the province to fund emergency shelters outside of Saskatoon and Regina. Premier Scott Moe told delegates that help is coming.
Not specifically Saskatoon and Regina, but some of our the next size of communities in the province. We've seen the city of Prince Albert, for example, has seen the benefit that is happening with the complex needs shelters and has asked to open up a dialogue for that community.
A councillor from Sedley asked when the province will sign Ottawa's $10 a day daycare extension. Her town just built a new 30-space daycare center that will open soon.
Saskatchewan will sign that agreement. We recently, by way of knowledge, we recently signed back on March 10th the National School Food Program agreement with the federal government. We were able to conclude those negotiations fairly quickly, but we will sign that agreement. We want to make sure that it's sustainable, that it's here for the long term. We know how important that it is.
There were plenty of other pointed questions and even a few thank yous from delegates for the government's pro-coal policies, but Premier Moe and his cabinet ministers seem to escape this bear pit unscathed. Jeremy Warren, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The University of Saskatchewan Students' Union is worried about the negative impact a tuition increase will have on its students. The U of S recently announced a 3.8% increase in tuition. Now the Students' Union is calling for sustained action. It says with the price of living and food prices rising, students are already stretching their pockets. The union is calling on the university and the provincial government to collaborate and make meaningful investments in student financial aid and to ensure tuition remains accessible for all. The Bank of Canada is pausing its interest rate cuts, keeping the benchmark rate unchanged. It says it was a decision dominated by one consideration: Donald Trump's tariffs. Kyle Bax reports.
Looking ahead, there are some early encouraging signs.
Facing an ever-changing trade war, the Bank of Canada is standing pat, watching and waiting to see the true impact of tariffs, including a possible recession.
The Canadian economy is starting from a good place. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we're navigating carefully.
Borrowing costs for Canadians have noticeably dropped over the last year, following 7 consecutive rate cuts. For now, rates are steady at 2.75%.
In this very clouded situation, we're going to proceed carefully. There's a lot of uncertainty about tariffs. There's opposing forces on inflation.
Tariffs could cause both higher prices in Canada and job losses. The central bank would struggle to address both issues, since lower interest rates would lead to more household spending. That could help boost employment, but also drive inflation even higher.
You've got 2 different rooms in your house on fire. You've got 1 bucket of water. Which room are you going to go to? The room to try and douse the fire, the room where people are losing their jobs, or the room where prices are going up? So it's a very challenging moment for any central banker.
Many economists still expect lower interest rates later this year, but only slightly.
I think the message is don't expect rates to fall to where they were during COVID. I mean, this is a different type of shock that the Bank of Canada is dealing with, and it's limiting their ability to cut rates.
The next interest rate cut could come in a few months, with the bank making its next decision in June. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
Ontario is dropping all provincial trade barriers with Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. The reciprocal deal will allow for free interprovincial trade between the provinces as a means to help weather U.S. tariffs. The 3 premiers met Wednesday to discuss the impact of trade barriers and the benefits of removing them.
They reduce our national GDP by more than 7% and cost our economy up to $200 billion every single year. In other words, much like President Trump's tariffs, these trade barriers hurt our economy, drive away jobs and investment, and divide us from each other.
The premiers say their agreement will open the doors between provinces for skilled workers to move around freely, helping to address a shortage of nurses and doctors in some areas of the country. And goods will be able to move between provinces without issue, opening up new markets for both businesses and customers. The premiers called on other provinces to join them and eliminate their provincial barriers. Well, we are in that time of the spring where, all the snow is gone from the streets and the roads and the parks, but there's no leaves on the trees. So that means you can really see things from above downtown Regina. We have been getting pretty used to these nice, mild spring April days, but we have a little bit of unsettled weather to get through before the sun comes back out and the temperatures warm up. I'll have all the details in your full forecast when we come back. Welcome back. The federal election is fast approaching, and Indigenous organizations are encouraging more Indigenous people to vote. They're hoping they'll shape the future of Canada. Darla Panes has more.
Leanne Klein says she never used to vote. That all changed in the last federal election. She started seeing how Indigenous people, like herself, were being negatively impacted by government policies. Now she's trying to encourage other Indigenous people to vote as well.
I've been really encouraging my family, you guys really need to get out and cast your votes, listen to the news, listen to what's happening in our country. That something obviously needs to change, because when you just walk outside, there's so much struggle happening.
At the University of Regina, early voting is underway, and some Indigenous students are taking the opportunity to make their voices heard.
If we have someone who doesn't see as Indigenous issues as an importance in the Canadian society, then that impacts how we're seen through legislation.
So many of our rights are dictated by the federal government, so it's very important that we have a say in that.
The election is on the minds of students at the First Nations University of Canada. They're focused on how their vote will impact future generations, and affordability is top of mind.
I want to be able to make sure that I'm able to pay for daycare, pay for my rent, bills and stuff like that without feeling overburdened.
AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepnak hopes more Indigenous people will vote in this election. She says it is important, as most Indigenous people were only granted the right to vote in 1960.
We're the fastest growing demographic in this country. And it's important that we vote, that we get out there and vote and show our strength and our force.
Indigenous voters could have also decided close races in previous elections. According to an analysis by the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, it found the potential number of Indigenous voters in certain ridings was larger than the margin of victory. Darla Panes, CBC News, Regina.
And while many Indigenous people will be casting a vote, others are choosing not to. We caught up with one Indigenous woman to hear why she's not heading to the ballot box.
My name is Andrea Landry, and I assert myself as an Indigenous sovereign from the Anishinaabe Nation, and I choose not to vote in Canadian political elections. I am moving ahead from what Canada wanted to do to my people, right? Which is they wanted us to all be dead. They didn't want Indians to exist. And that's still part of the political agenda today. And what can I do as an individual to ensure that the original intent, spirit and intent of treaty isn't dismissed, isn't washed away, isn't looked at as, oh, that happened a long time ago, that's irrelevant, because it's not irrelevant, right? As long as the sun shines, grass grows, waters flow. Right, it's eternal, that relationship, and what was agreed upon within that relationship is eternal. So things can't change just because the Canadian political system says, oh, here's a new act, now we're going to take over and control all the Indians. And so for me, it's like maintaining the relevancy and maintaining the power and the spirit and intent of what was originally agreed upon when settlers were allowed and are continued to be allowed to live on our lands today. We are teaching ourselves to recover, to heal, and to thrive within our communities, within our family systems, when Canada wanted us dead. So for me, that's how I am politically engaged. That's how I am making shifts and changes. I'm so sure and certain of where I stand that what other people want to do is up to them. Yeah, and then if they say, oh, well, what if we all voted an Indigenous politician in place one day? And it's like, all right, great. But whose laws is that Indigenous politician going to have to follow?
Well, some on and off cloud cover through parts of the province through Wednesday, including in Regina. Still seeing some fairly nice temperatures, and the only thing kind of disrupting our nice spring weather has been the wind these past few days, and we are seeing that once again today. Let's take a look at where we got in terms of peak wind gusts in the province. Some of us through Wednesday over 60 kilometers an hour, including in Saskatoon, a gust of 65 a little earlier in the afternoon, near 60 in the Prince Albert area and in Regina as well, and over 40 throughout the rest of southern Saskatchewan. Winds picking up as a result of that low pressure system that you can see swirling away there in northern Saskatchewan, bringing through some snow flurries and some rain mixed in there. And we're also seeing some rain and mixed with snow at times through parts of south central and southwestern Saskatchewan. But all that's going to start to clear away as we go overnight. Snow in northern Saskatchewan continues to move southwards. That means that by Thursday afternoon, those of us in south and central likely seeing the cloud cover moving back in, maybe a little bit of some snow or rain or mixed precipitation moving through for the afternoon. Things, though, clearing out as we get into Friday, and then Saturday, central and northern sections of the province affected by another low pressure system moving on through, and that looks like it'll mostly be falling in the form of rain. For south and central, we're not really looking for a whole lot of accumulation, especially from that rain and snow moving through as we get into Thursday, maybe a couple of millimeters at most, and that is largely confined to an area along the Yellowhead corridor and through central Saskatchewan. But winds continuing to be gusty as these next couple of systems move through. We'll still see things around the 40 kilometer an hour mark in southern parts of the province as we get into Thursday. Things dying down for Friday in south and central, but those winds, you notice, start to pick up as we get into northern areas as that next low pressure system starts to move in on Friday. Temperatures will take a slight tumble as that next system moves through as we get into the end of the work week, but you can see there another ridge starts building into the jet stream and we get some warmer air moving in as we start heading through the Easter long weekend. So for Regina, this means a couple of days we'll still be sitting in the single digits for daytime highs, maybe a shower for Thursday. But then look at that, Saturday and Sunday, nice temperatures, sunshine, a little bit breezy at times. Overnight lows staying largely right around or just above the freezing mark before we get some more cloud cover moving in for the beginning of next week. And in Saskatoon, again, maybe some showers or flurries as we get into Thursday, and then Friday, things clear away. Saturday looking to be a nice day, albeit with a few wind gusts here and there. A showery few days, maybe some flurries as we get into Tuesday, and then things improving as we get into Wednesday with temperatures returning to normal, some sunshine, and an overnight low of around the freezing mark. Well, St. Boniface Hospital in Winnipeg will be the first acute care hospital in Canada to have a vending machine to help save lives. The Health Box will allow people who need naloxone or HIV self-testing kits to get them free and discreetly. A clinical ethicist at St. Boniface says the machine will have a touch screen that not only shows you the product, but lets you know how to use it.
It's not like a typical vending machine where you see that Coca-Cola bottle and you click A3. It's completely digital, and then you click an image of the product that you're interested in, and then you get a ton of information about that product.
The Health Box will also have safe consumption kits and items like socks for those in need. There is a similar vending machine at the Norwest Co-op Community Health Clinic in Winnipeg, but this is a first for a hospital.
Common Loon.
Well, this is one of two new exhibits opening up just in time for the Easter break at the Royal Saskatchewan Museum in Regina. It lets you guess what animal is making the sound you hear. The other new exhibit lets you explore the eco-regions within the province, learning where each region is and what its landscape consists of. The museum also has some other fun Easter week activities coming up, and you can find out more about those on the RSM's website. Stay with us. We have more news after the break. Chase Meachance had a dream. He saw powwow dancers dressed in Walmart regalia. And 1 year later, he contacted his uncle Sage to help make that dream a reality.
It's light, it's airy, it's flexible. It's not bad. It's nice color too. It's nice and bright, blue and yellow. Looks good on me.
It took 13 bags to bring that bad boy together. And what took the longest part was probably just cutting the squares up and sewing them together and reinforcing the stitching so it won't tear. It's different. It's definitely different. And as the very first time I've ever made something like that, I make regalia and all that, but then actually making something out of Walmart bags, I was like, this is definitely going to be different. It could either get good attention or bad attention. I think it's pretty cool. I'm thinking about making myself one here before Regina powwow this weekend if I could get the time in.
I hope more people catch on and then make their own regalia, not out of Walmart bags, but whatever they can too. At the end of the day, it's just some fun idea that I came up with in the dream and just wanted to share it with the world.
No word yet, by the way, on if Chase has achieved a Walmart sponsorship with that clothing he has there. We'll keep an eye on that. Our weather forecast tells us, might want to throw on a little bit of a jacket or maybe keep the gloves handy just below the freezing mark through south and central as we see those winds continuing to be strong at times overnight. Northern Saskatchewan still dealing with the remnants of that low pressure system. So we're still seeing some flurries there, maybe some showers mixed into those as you go a bit further south into the Churchill region. We get into Thursday morning and we are starting to see a little bit of clearing, especially in far northwestern sections. But the further east you are, closer to the Manitoba border, still seeing temperatures actually hanging back quite a bit, in between -5 and -10 for some areas there as you continue to linger in cloud cover. For south and central, again, we're watching those flurries, maybe changing over to some rain showers at times into the afternoon as that drops southward as we head through the day. Temperatures hanging a bit below seasonal. We're only in sort of those mid-single digits above the freezing mark or so. And keep in mind, probably still seeing a little bit of gusts of wind at times, especially in southern parts of the province. And that is it for us. For more news anytime, you can head to our website or subscribe to our YouTube channel or download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.